Okay, so a lot of people are asking us what equipment we actually use here. So in the next minute or two, I'm going to bring you through the exact performance testing equipment that we use in the clinic and how we use it and what kind of metrics it gives us. So this is our force frame. So we will use this to measure max strength. More often we'll be using this with a hip battery. So we'll be analysing how much strength that you have in the outside of your hips, the front of your hips, the back of your hips, and it gives us a metric, but most importantly it gives us an asymmetry between it. And what we can do with that is we're able to rotate it depending on what position that you're in. We can bring it up and down, we can spread out the paddles depending on what kind of metrics you have or how big you are. And it's a really useful tool to, especially for asymmetries when we're using it in the early stages of the rehab process. And there's a couple of bit of attachments here, so we can use that for that's a shoulder attachment where you rest your elbow on that, and you can assess the shoulders strength in that in a 90-90 position. And then over here. This is our dynamo, so we use this for testing quads and hamstring strength. So this little thing pops around your ankle, you sit into the leg extension machine, and then you're kicking out against it, and then that'll give us a marker for your max strength and how much force you're able to produce with that. Then we can kind of flip people over and we can put them lying down on the ground, and then we can test your hamstring strength as well. Okay, and then that's mainly the most stuff that we use for the rehab side of things. But then when we're going on to the performance side of things, these are our force plates. Our force plates are kind of like where we start to analyse what kind of strength characteristics people have before they go back to sport. So how quickly they're able to use their entire limb to absorb force when they land, and then how quickly they can absorb force, but how quickly they can also produce force. And that shows out loads of different metrics. And now I'll bring you down in through the clinic, and I'll bring you through to show what that shows up on our screen and what the athletes and we'll be analysing. Okay, don't mind the mess. So I'm just going to use me here. So basically I had a back injury there last year, and I lost a good bit of power into my quad. So I did a couple of tests on here. So we had seated knee flexion there. So if you look at here, that was July. I had 565 newtons, so I was up 7.2%, but then there was a difference, there was a 32% asymmetry. So we can analyze that and actually see how strong I am and where I need to be. So this is the metric that I needed to get to. This is where I was, but that was the deficit. And then we tested it a couple of weeks later, it was up 29%, and then the asymmetry was down to 9.6. And then that was in the case of how many weeks? That's 11 days and let's say 10, so let's say 3 weeks, up by 30%, and that's how quickly you can start to develop strength once the targeted exercises comes into it. So that's our valve hub. That gives a little bit of an overview then of what we tested. Sorry, it's running a bit slow today. Of what we tested over the last couple of months, and again it spits out lots of different metrics here that we're able to use. See the leg extension, there was 18%, so a little bit of a drop in it there. Then this is your force strain, your side lying abductions, how strong you are on the outside of your hips. So again 21% difference there, but overall the numbers had improved because I was training that at that point. And that's really good. So like it gives us a lot of information to make a guided and remove the guesswork basically. Like, if you have all of this data that you're able to analyse, it makes it an awful lot easier to make decisions from a rehab perspective. And then lastly, when we use this VALD equipment, VALD are really good at spitting out some data, and what they did. So they basically assessed everybody from the Premier League, or a lot of the teams from the Premier League that are using their equipment, to give us percentiles about how strong they are. So their jump height there, the top ones are 44 centimeters, and then the lower ones are 26 centimeters. And that's pre-season. Then in season it just increases just a little bit, and then that's our standards. That's what we're looking to get to. But also the most interesting thing of it is that it's not about how much force you're able to produce. It's actually about how quickly you're able to decelerate and how much stiffness you have in that leg to be able to provide explosive power. And what we look at here is force, velocity, how displacement is. In one of the tests, it's a counter movement jump. How quickly can you get down and off the ground? So so they don't move as much, but they produce an awful lot of more power. And that's the difference between the elite level athletes and your amateur athletes. And that's great information to know, because then we train the power we train the specific areas that they need to be able to produce force in, and then their performance levels improve. So overall, massive, great piece of kit. So that's what we use. That's what we use in the clinic. That's how we use it. And as I said, like, it removes the guesswork. So if you're coming back from an injury and you just don't feel right, what we do is we bring you in, we test you, we figure out where the deficits are, and then give you the metrics of, okay, right, you've got a 30% deficit. We need to close that deficit first between your right and your left leg, but then we look at your overall strength scores and then where they match up, so where you should be. Are you elite level? Are you just pro level? Or are you just at your amateur level? And that's the difference between having a very, very successful and targeted rehab approach, or just going through the motions and ticking along with a couple of exercises but not really progressing. But it's very, very useful piece of kit, and even us, it surprises us a couple of days where we see people that look absolutely fine, but then when we analyse them on the force plates or the force plates or on the force frame, it spits out some metrics that we kind of go, right, whoa, right, we need to close this, and maybe this is related to it, related to the injury, and we need to get better at that. And but it's ever evolving. We don't claim to have all the answers. We're not we are a sports medicine department, but we're not sports scientists. We have a couple of people who understand the metrics, but we leave the really, really complicated stuff to the guys that are better at it. We know where we fit in that chain of that rehab process. We analyse your strength deficits, we create a rehab program around it, and then we guide you through that rehab program, progressing or regressing as you need be. And it's a full support ecosystem that's guided by metrics, not by guesswork. And then the nicest thing is that you can see the improvement, and then once you see the improvement, you feel that confidence level, you feel that numbers go up, and it's nice to see. And once we get the results with patients, they're happy with us, and they send them off on their merry way to go play championship.